Welcome to Chapter 8 of Project Dracunalysис. Let's, for this one, continue our journey. So Chapter 8 opens with Mina Murray's journal. Same day, 11 o'clock PM. As it says there, I am tired of, not that I had made my diary a duty, I should not open it tonight. Again, another one of these self-referential for Mina's character from Bram Stoker there, where it explains why she's keeping these records so meticulously when it might seem a little bit far-fetched otherwise. Then, I thought this is quite fun here. We had a lovely walk. Lucy, after a while, was in gay spirits, owing, I think, to some dear cows who came nosing towards us in a field close to the lighthouse and frightened the wits out of us. Well, it's obviously hyperbolic, but also, ironically, foreshadows the real fear that's ahead of them. Interestingly, there's a contextual reference here for the new woman, or to the new woman, which is a late 19th century, early 20th century cultural shift where more women are doing more jobs that were kind of previously male-only domains, women with more more progressive social attitudes, pushing boundaries that earlier eras would have found shocking. So really, you've got a lot of the DNA of the suffragette movement in the future as well in this kind of idea. So it's very much connected, at least in its kind of early stage, what we've got here. So some of the new women writers will someday start an idea that men and women should be allowed to see each other asleep before proposing or accepting. But I suppose the new woman won't condescend in future to accept. She will do the proposing herself, and a nice job she will make of it too. So you can see some like proto-feminist ideas here coming through, at least for the character of Mina. You can have a bit of a debate think about it yourself really. Is Stoker expecting us to see Mina and Lucy as new women? Is he expecting us to see Mina as a new woman and Lucy is not as a new woman? Mina herself doesn't think she's a new woman as a character. Are we not meant to see either of them as new women? And that, what does that bring actually to the novel as well? But it is interestingly like a progressive concept here, and ironically, it foreshadows the future, but Stoker wouldn't necessarily have realised that. It's just that he's made a particular prediction, hasn't he, there? Then we have more references to Lucy's sleepwalking, which is been a recurring theme so far. And we said about liminal spaces and sleepwalking being between awake and being asleep. Then we have, thank God I said to myself, she cannot be far as she is only in her nightdress. I do wonder if some of these references to the women undressing and like what they're wearing in bed, is it meant to be a kind of fruity, slightly exciting reference for Victorian readers. It's another example of the what would have been seen as the edgy nature of the novel in the time, as in it would have been more challenging established Victorian propriety and morality a lot of the time because of the horrific nature of it, but also there is this sexual element to the novel as well. And the way that it's written here isn't necessarily sexualised, but I think it could be interpreted in that way, and maybe Stoker was thinking of that. Then we have the reference to the favourite seat, which we've already seen in previous chapters, seems to be near where Dracula's got his temporary tomb. Well, it's not really a tomb as such, but his temporary resting place in the daytime so he can recharge his vampire batteries. The coming of the cloud, this is where she finds Lucy. The coming of the cloud was too quick for me to see much, for shadow shut down on light almost immediately. But it seemed to me as though something dark stood behind the seat where the white figure shone. So Lucy is there, and she's actually, Mina doesn't realise it obviously at this stage, but she's seeing Dracula. For I was now close enough to distinguish it even through the spells of shadow. There was undoubtedly something long and black bending over the half-reclining white figure. I called in fright, Lucy, Lucy, and something raised a head, and where I was I could see a white face and red, gleaming eyes. So there's a lexis of uncertainty here. It's not clear exactly what she's seeing, but you can see, we know, dramatic irony, that it's actually Dracula. When I bent over, I could see that she was still asleep. Her lips were parted and she was breathing, not softly as usual with her, but in long, heavy gasps, as though striving to get her lungs full at every breath. So I think with that, there are some deliberate sexual connotations there as well. So Lucy's heavy breathing is meant to suggest, well, I won't spell it out for you for YouTube purposes. You can fill in the gaps again, if that's if I can say that. So you can work that out yourselves. But it does seem to have, definitely, there's some sexual connotations here with Dracula's encounter having just passed. Okay, so we have fortune favoured us. We got home without meeting a soul. So yeah, this is when Mina has to get Lucy home in her nightdress, and there's some concerns about, again, Victorian propriety. She's going to be seen out and about in a nightdress, so Victorian culture would think maybe something saucy's been going on. Once we saw a man who seemed not quite sober. So there's a little bit of litotes there as an understatement. So there's a drunken man, doesn't see them. And so she gets back home completely without being spotted. There's only this drunk man who didn't notice. There's, again, dramatic irony. I was sorry to notice that my clumsiness with a safety pin hurt her. Indeed, it might have been serious, so the skin of her throat was pierced, and I have pinched up a piece of loose skin and have transfixed it for her. 2 little red points like pinpricks. And on the band of her nightdress was a drop of blood. What could that be? So dramatic irony, but again, Stoker's got this theme of when we encounter things we don't understand, or things on the edge of known science and experience, there's a tendency for a lot of people. Well, actually, I suppose in real life, a lot of people go either way, don't they, really? People will sometimes jump to a supernatural or paranormal explanation, and then other people will do everything they can to try and rationalise something that seems more mysterious and unusual. But sometimes that more rational way of thinking is so unlikely, it seems completely implausible. And I think that's what we've got happening here. It would be, it's not impossible, but it's extremely unlikely to get like 2 pinpricks right kind of distance apart with a safety pin. Just seems, a bit far-fetched, doesn't it? But again, it's dramatic irony. Sorry, I merged the 2 words together there. Then she seemed, even in her sleep, to be a little impatient at finding the door shut, and went back to bed under a sort of protest. So that was when she was sleepwalking again. Also, there's a spotting of a great bat. Between me and the moonlight flitted a great bat, coming and going in great whirling circles. So again, this is Dracula, and it's dramatic irony again as well. And the abbey is obviously where he's resting. Then there's more or further references to Lucy having seen Dracula. His red eyes again, they're just the same. So as the sun's setting and they're near the abbey, Dracula's influence is presumably starting to affect Lucy straight away. It was such an odd expression coming apropos of nothing that it's quite startled me. So it's almost, again, a liminal space, almost hypnotic, trance-like, isn't it, as well? She appeared to be looking over at our own seat, whereon was a dark figure seated alone. The stranger had great eyes like burning flames, but a second look dispelled the illusion. So, again, you've got more dramatic irony. It's a big theme of this chapter. Well, not big theme, big technique of this chapter. And then, again, this rationalisation of something that's actually supernatural, but it's being rationalised in a way that doesn't really make sense when we know, well, what we know as the reader as well. St Mary's Church behind us sitting, as the sun dipped, there was just sufficient change in the refraction and reflection to make it appear as if the light moved. So it's being rationalised. It is actually Dracula's evil red eyes glowing. Then I didn't have too much to say about this page, but you've got about Lucy's health. She eats well and sleeps well, enjoys the fresh air, but all the time the roses in her cheeks are fading and she gets weaker and more languid day by day. At night I hear her gasping as if for air. I keep the key of our door always fastened to my wrist at night. But she gets up and walks about the room and sits at the open window. So that links back to what we said earlier on as well. But even this, not just the sexual element of it, but also the liminality and the sleepwalking, which we've mentioned before. I trust her feeling ill may not be from the unlucky prick of the safety pin. You really want to say, well, duh. So again, but it's all about Stoker building suspense, isn't he, as well? Like, we know Dracula's there. We know this danger is approaching, and we've got these two vulnerable women, and Lucy is particularly more vulnerable at the moment because she seems to be under Dracula's spell and becoming more and more under his influence. And it's the classic horror or gothic horror trope of women in danger, isn't it? And it's all like horror films will generally have like young women in danger. It's just part of the genre. So then we have another part of the epistolary form, switching here to a letter from the solicitors, and this is all written in kind of much more formal business language as well. It's more definitely different to the personal style that we've just seen with Lucy. And again, Stoker very able at shifting between the different styles. But this is really just adding context about Dracula's arrangements of having all those boxes of earth moved around, which is where he wants them to go. And then just basically that these have been, the instructions and the parcels are being delivered. So parcels, the packages, the crates. Then more references to Lucy's health here as well. She's weakening. And we have more references to animals. A fish leapt as I went by, and I leaned over to look at it, and I heard a lot of dogs howling. The whole town seemed as if it must be full of dogs all howling at once as I went up the steps. Again, another link of Dracula to animals, dogs howling. Then I had a vague memory of something long and dark with red eyes, just as we saw in the sunset, and something very sweet and very bitter all around me at once. Then I seemed sinking into deep green water. There was a singing in my ears. So this is all Lucy recounting her nocturnal wanderings. She's sort of half vaguely remembering. And in case you'd forgotten about him, the 19th of August, Stoker includes another journal entry here. Joy, 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 although not all joy. There's an exclamatory sentence there, and epizeuxis as well on that bit. At last, news of Jonathan, the dear fellow, has been ill, and that is why he did not write. So we finally find out what's happening to him. And he's been looked after by Sister Agatha, Hospital of St. Joseph, St. Mary, Budapest, to Miss Wilhelmina Murray. So anyway, Sister Agatha, and it's a convent, and they're looking after Jonathan Harker after his experiences with Dracula, where you could say that the medical treatment is second to none. Right, sorry about that. So anyway, there's Sister Agatha. Then we have a reference to, in his delirium, his ravings have been dreadful, of wolves and poison and blood, of ghosts and demons. It's a nice syndetic list there as well. And I fear to say of what. Be careful with him always, that there may be nothing to excite him of this kind for a long time to come. So Harker is clearly being presented here by Stoker as having been traumatised and damaged. And then talking about mental health, Stoker then moves to Dr. Diary, where we're going to find out about Renfield again and what crazy shenanigans he's been getting up to. About 8 o'clock, he began to get excited and sniff about as a dog does when setting. So more, zoomorphic referencing or use of zoomorphism, where we have Renfield being likened to a dog there, or actually it's a simile as well, isn't it? I don't want to talk to you. You don't count now. The master is at hand. Again, we know who the master is, so dramatic irony there. It looks like religious mania, and again, this actually links to a lot of the themes of this chapter in terms of, or one of the themes of the chapter, where Mina has been rationalising supernatural things. We as the readers are more we're actually more aware of what's going on than the characters who are actually within the story themselves. So again, it's more dramatic irony. We know what's going on. We know it's not a religious mania. But again, Seward, as a scientific mind, is rationalising it. Then he doesn't care about his little animals anymore that he was eating. Spiders at present are his hobby, and the notebook is filling up with columns of small figures. And we mentioned about numbers and numerology, and there is a mystical quality to numbers, and there's kind of a weird idea, isn't there? Like pages of numbers that don't mean anything to other people. So this is actually really interesting. This is Stoker's got Renfield here deliberately inverting a reference to the Bible, and I say it's inverted because there's seeing instead of hearing reference, and also there's a gender swap as well here about the coming of the bride. So what you have is actually Renfield is seeing himself as a John the Baptist type figure, where he's preparing for the arrival not of Christ but effectively the Antichrist as Dracula. It's a very clever inversion. He would not explain himself but remained obstinately seated on his bed all the time I remained with him. There's also reference to him escaping as well. So Renfield now escapes. I love this line. Chasing an errant swarm of bees is nothing to following a naked lunatic when fit of escaping is upon him. I'm sure Dr. Seward is right about that. I'm sure that is difficult. But again, more zoomorphism as well. Then Renfield has this great line of, I am here to do your bidding, master. I am your slave, and you will reward me, for I shall be faithful. I have worshipped you long and afar off. Now that you are near, I await your commands, and you will not pass me by, will you, dear master, in your distribution of good things? And of course, good things is ironic because Dracula is obviously evil, and Renfield is hoping to get some of this evil power from him as well. When we closed in on him, he fought like a tiger, so another animal reference, more zoomorphism, and it's another simile as well. Then Jack Shepherd, it's a little cultural reference that Victorian readers would get, because I think he was actually from the previous century, but I'm not 100% sure about that. But it doesn't matter so much as Victorian readers would get it, and he was a notorious prisoner who kept escaping. Jack Shepherd, that's the main reason for that reference there as well. Straight waistcoat is what we call straight jackets in modern times, so that's a bit of archaic lexis there. I shall be patient, master. It is coming, coming, coming. So you can think of Renfield anticipating the arrival of Dracula. So I took the hint and came to. I was too excited to sleep, but this diary is quiet to me, and I feel I shall get some sleep tonight. I think this again is ironically foreshadowing the dark times that are ahead for these characters. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that. Check out all the other ones. Like, subscribe. Got more and more videos now. And thanks again for listening. Goodbye.